ccnlive.com. Richard Cain has a very remarkable story, and this subject, ladies and gentlemen, is not a subject that is foreign. We've brought this up before on numerous occasions. I've talked to other individuals that have suffered similar to what Richard Cain is going to share today, of being a targeted individual. Okay? And throughout the past several weeks, I would say about the past month or so, probably a little over a month now, Richard's been sending me lots of documentation and information backing up everything that he's going to share with you guys today. And before I bring him on, you know, I want him to share his background, his story, and all of that. But I mean, this guy's he's no fool. Just in the conversations I've been having with him and the interaction that I've had with him via the email, he's a very smart gentleman. I mean, he went to school for law and started his own business. In fact, I'll even read an excerpt of an email that he sent me. And by the way, as you guys listening to this interview today, there's photos, there's documentation, there's PDF files, X-rays, that Richard Cain is going to be referencing to throughout the show. And it's all posted up. Well, most of it is so much. I didn't get a chance to post everything, but eventually I'll continue to update the link. But it's all on flowofwisdom.com. And the title of that link on flowofwisdom.com is Richard Cain, Implanted with Nanotechnology, Documents, Images, and Proof of Being a Targeted Individual. In one email he sent me, he said, my family and I have been the subjects of government-funded human research and or hate crimes. These crimes are being covered up by using the words national security. The fact that my two minor children have the same and or similar devices in their little bodies speaks for themselves. My sons were ages 3 and 4 when the discoveries took place. Their X-rays, blood and urine analysis present the true facts. The devices can only be introduced into the body while being in a medical facility. All 3 of us were patient of the same defendant hospital. He goes on to write, I observe my sons being tortured nightly as the devices are being triggered inside of their little bodies, depriving them of sleep for hours until they awake. I will not rest until the Department of Justice commences an investigation into these hate crimes. The link below describes the devices in detail. Then he asked a question, and I'm asking you guys, the listeners right now, Flow of Wisdom Radio, can you imagine these devices being implanted into the body of anyone, especially children? It's troubling. There's no excuse for these crimes other than greed. The devices are micromechanical systems. In other words, MEMS, M-E-M-S is the acronym. I want to welcome for the first time the Flow of Wisdom Radio, Richard Cain. Richard, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Good to have you on. You know, as we spoke briefly yesterday, Richard, you know, I already told you this conversation can go many, many different ways because you have so much information, you have so much documentation backing up everything that you've shared, and I'm sure that certain questions will arise where we may deviate and go a different direction. But first, I just want you to give my listeners here a background about who you are, where you come from, you know, what you were doing, your education and everything prior to you being targeted and getting implanted with this nanotechnology.
Okay. Well, I was born in Chicago, raised in Michigan, came out to California, attended Fresno State, eventually received my Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Cal State LA, with a minor in pre-law, Juris Doctorate degree, Southern California Institute of Law, and a Master of Laws from Thomas Jefferson School of Law. And prior to going to law school in 2007, I'd worked over 10 years in human services field, working in group homes for residential kids, at-risk youth, working with adults from developmental disabilities. So essentially what I decided to do was, since I had gone to undergrad with the long-term goal of becoming an attorney, started law school in 2007. In 2009, actually in 2010, is when my nightmare began.
Now explain to us exactly what happened when you first realized that something wasn't right.
Well, in 2010, it's vivid as if it happened yesterday. Summer of 2010, I owned a company called Elite Attorney Services, had an office in Westlake Village, California, which is in Ventura County. And I recall just this strange coincidence. Everywhere I traveled, there seemed to be a law enforcement vehicle somewhere, no matter what time, day, or night. And being a criminal justice major, having relatives in law enforcement, that type of thing, was real obvious to me that after seeing the same pattern for about a month or two that, I'm under some type of surveillance. And the first thing I thought was they have to have the wrong person. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I went to at the time I was living in Ventura County, so where I noticed it the most was in the city of Ventura, California. So what I did was, to make sure I didn't go by myself, I called up a friend who is the president of the Ventura County chapter of the NAACP, and he's been so for over 30 years, John Hatcher. And so Mr. Hatcher and I visit the Ventura Police Department. They know him very well. They probably didn't know me, at least I assume they didn't. And so I recall showing my driver's license, saying, it appears that I'm under some type of surveillance. I believe you guys have the wrong person. I proceeded to tell them I attend the law school right down the street. I'm a law clerk at the public defender's office. I'm a Superior Court mediator, just laying out my entire background because I'm 100% sure I'm under some type of surveillance, and they have to have the wrong person. That's the first thing I was thinking. I was thinking this will be a piece of cake. Here's my ID, and I know this will be over. Whatever it is I was seeing. So I recalled I think it was a corporal who was working at that time. He ran my license, and he says, well, we don't have anything on you. And if we did, if it may be another agency, which is out of our control, and if there were some type of investigation, we wouldn't be able to tell you. So we left that day, and interestingly enough, prior to that, that presence that I talked about was obvious. And for the rest of that day, the presence disappeared. Like, I didn't see the same law enforcement, obviously marked vehicles follow me. So we went to the Oxnard Police Department, and that's where Mr. Hatcher, the president of NAACP, he's kind of based in Oxnard. So we went to the Oxnard Police Department with the same kind of request. This is who I am. Because generally, if you're in a certain residential area, that particular law enforcement agencies have to know or are involved in some kind of way if they're following you. So we got the same thing. If we were following you, we wouldn't be able to tell you, blah, blah, blah. So that went on. And so after that, the second visit at the Oxnard Police Department, like I said in the first case, the presence seems to dissipate. And I'll never forget it. It was July, shortly thereafter, I think right around the July 21st, 2010, I was at the beach, I want to say at Zuma Beach out in Malibu, and all I can tell you is that's the day when everything, helicopters, airplanes, now that I know today, government helicopters and airplanes kept flying over the area where we were playing volleyball. And from that day all the way up until the present day, there's been a law enforcement. Even today, I got out of church at St. Paul Baptist Church in Oxnard. As soon as I got to a certain point, there was an Oxnard PD car. As soon as I jumped on the freeway, 2 CHP cars, bumper to bumper. It's just the same pattern. It's kind of almost like a harassment pattern. Obviously, they knew I was coming on your show today. And this has been going on for 5 years. Nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 years. But because I know I'm an innocent man, haven't done anything, I learned to ignore it because now I know what it's designed to do. It's designed to oppress, harass, and pretty much make me snap. Pretty much like some of the other individuals who've been subjected to the same thing. They snapped because they felt like there was no other alternative. In my case, I know there's an alternative, and interesting enough that when you opened up today and you talked about no weapons formed against me shall prosper, that is what I say every single day, and that's how I've made it through this. They can fly the planes, play the mind games, and do all the things they're doing, but when you're an innocent man, you have nothing to fear, and I say that every single day when I wake up. None of their weapons formed against me shall prosper, even the ones that are in my body still to this day. Some have been removed, and others haven't been removed because of where they're located. And the reality of this whole story is somebody's responsible for it, and they know that I'm not stopping until I get answers, and who's decided for 5 years almost now to basically destroy my name and cause me harm, unnecessary harm to me and my family.
Wow, what a courageous story. And I tell you guys, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. Richard Cain joining me sharing his story, his testimony. It's a testimony that's still in progress of being a targeted individual. We're going to get more into how these projectiles, this nanotechnology, was implanted into his body and his two sons. We'll be right back after this on Flow of Wisdom Radio. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Flow of Wisdom Radio. I am your host, Sean Anthony. Joining me live is Richard Cain, a targeted individual, sharing his story. Richard, this is a short segment here, about 5 minutes or so. Let's pick up where we left off. You say around the summer of 2010 is when you remember being targeted began to happen. You started to notice that law enforcement were surveilling you every step of the way.
Yep.
You went directly to them and said, look, I feel like I'm being surveilled. You have the wrong person. You knew that you were innocent. You were in law school. You let them know. And you said that later on you were at the beach and things started to kick up a notch.
Right, the day after I visited the police department, it's almost like someone said, oh, wow, he's aware that he's under surveillance. Let's ratchet it up. So literally bumper to bumper, 24 hours a day, the presence was heavier than you can even imagine.
Now, you said something, real quick, you said something before we went to break, and you answered the question, because I was like, how do you deal with that? And you answered it before I could ask you, and you said that they want you to snap, but you refuse to, like others have. When you said others, drop some names. Who were some others that were being surveilled, similar to what you're saying, that have snapped in the past?
Can we do this? Can we get to that just a little down the road? Because
sure.
we're getting there. Because what I want to do is, this whole thing started with the surveillance that we talked about. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until later the discovery of the devices. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it all together for you.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
How good God is, because this started with surveillance. And I had no idea at the time my body was loaded with the stuff that's in it right now. So this started with me wondering, what are they looking for? And I remember thinking, okay, they said that I'm not a subject, but clearly I am. I'll just go about my day as best I can, ignore what they're doing, because they never pulled me over once to this day. Heavy presence, never pulled me over. The helicopters, I've had helicopters fly right over my car in the opposite direction, right over the freeway, that type. And you know what's great about it? Because I know people will say, well, he's got to be making that up or what have you. But see, I'm a smart man. I recorded it all. They know I've recorded it all. And I put all my ducks in a row. As you stated earlier, the documentation I sent you, x-rays, blood or urine analysis, expert witness declarations from some of the top experts in the nation on nanotechnology, those types of things are all set in stone. So no one can say this is fiction. These are all facts. The reality of it is I observed some type of surveillance. I inquired as to what it was about. Nobody knew. To this day, I still have absolutely no idea. And that's what the sad part about this is. I've written every federal agency in the United States, including the DA, you name it, inquiring if I'm the subject. I've asked for a FOIA request. I've even offered to take a lie detector test from one of the top individuals in the nation that actually conducts polygraph examinations, who's a former FBI, and no response. So that told me right there, and that's when I started to figure this out, like, maybe somebody's trying to hide something versus looking for something. And that's when it all started to click, and I started doing my research. And it wasn't until 2011 that the discovery, actually 2012, the discovery of the devices, because my little ones were acting really strange at night, literally jolting around, grinding their teeth to the point where you could just hear excruciating in your ears where their teeth are grinding, and they were flailing about in their sleep and doing all these things that I now know were designed for me to become emotional. Because, seeing your loved one going through something and you get emotional and then you just want to lash out at something, or to make you appear crazy when you say, this is what I'm observing. But, of course, like everything else, I documented, videotaped it to make sure I saved the evidence for what I speak of. So this started with surveillance to the next step of discovering the devices, probably which I was not supposed to discover. And that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten today.
Right.
So when we speak of others, we'll get to the others, because what I've unfolded is it's the same modus operandi.
Right.
The same modus operandi. The only difference is Some individuals, they ratchet it up to a certain level, and some other individuals, they don't. And clearly, some of the individuals weren't able to endure such tactics. I've had to do it since 2010, all the way up until this present day.
All right,
but
great.
when you know you're innocent, and once you understand what it is you're trying to do, it makes the game, what I call it a game, because that's what it is. It makes the game much more easier to cope with.
We'll stay right there, Richard Cain, because we're going to pick up where you left off. We're going to talk about these devices you discovered in your body. Plus, I want to ask you about links to others that have been targeted and the links to psychotropic drugs. We'll talk about that and more right after this on Flow of Wisdom Radio. You know, something that my father always told me as a child, he says, son, only the strong will survive. And I think that's, I think that that fits Richard Cain, my guest today. Only the strong will survive. He's been surviving. He's been a targeted individual now for the past 5 years. Him and his sons were both implanted with nanotechnology, which he's going to share and go into detail here shortly. Welcome back for those that are listening live online at gcnlive.com. Flow of Wisdom Radio. I'm your host, Sean Anthony. If you have questions for my guest, feel free to call in 877-300-7645. And you know, Richard, I shared this with you before. You know, when I have this subject on my show, and I have certain guests that call into the show, you know, sometimes I'll get emails or, you know, responses on YouTube when I post the show up later. You know, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Come on, Sean. This is you know, this for all we know, this person could have made this up. And you and I'm not saying others haven't that I've had on my show, but you've overcompensated, you know, with all the documentation you've sent me. Like, it's so much information I didn't get a chance to post it all, but it is on one link. If you go to flowofwisdom.com, it's up there, and the PDF files, the images, emails, testimonies, like the Cain family, the RF scans, final report from doctors dating back from 2013. I mean, it's so detail oriented. One must question, okay, if this guy's providing all of these facts here, the next question is, what's going on? Why are they doing this to you? Exactly.
Well, my experts surmise that this is not a personal thing, that this is happening to a lot of people, and a lot of people just don't realize it. You have to remember, when I start feeling a lot of the symptoms that I felt, I thought I had high blood pressure. We now know that my alleged hypertension was caused by the millimeter-sized nanotechnology devices that have been implanted in my body. So can you imagine, for years and years, thinking you have hypertension, and you find out the truth many years later? It boggles the mind. Because remember, this started with me inquiring about a potential surveillance, to being obvious surveillance, bumper to bumper, front and back, 24 hours a day, night and day, all the way up until this present day. And now I know it's because somebody's got something to hide, not because I've done something. And one of the things that I thought about a lot, like, why me? And is this for surveillance purposes? Is this for experimentation? And over the years, after looking at other stories and my own research, my own experts, my own documents, this is clearly experimentation and or hate crimes. Those are the only two. Because, look, for surveillance, you can put a small chip in somebody's hand and follow them all over America. You don't need to implant somebody from head to toe. I don't know if you read some of my documents from some of my experts. I have what's called remote neural monitoring devices in me, which means I'm implanted from head to toe. And these are sophisticated devices. You can't get these materials or biomedical devices on the market anywhere. These are sophisticated, which means there has to be a high level of participation involved, which means government.
Richard, golly. You're dropping so much stuff. I want to keep interjecting to ask you to expand on one thing, but then I'm like, nah, let them roll because let's get all of this out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
have a part 2 for sure.
Yeah, not a problem. But we got 2 hours, so we're going to try to get through this as much as possible. Let's go back a little bit. You said, I thought I had high blood pressure.
Correct.
So take us step by step. You know, you were being surveilled. Okay, that was one thing. Then next day, boom. What's going on with my body, with my physical health? You're an in shape guy.
Oh yeah, and to this day, exactly.
Okay, so walk us through how did the high blood pressure come, and then how did you find out what it was?
In 1999, I was allegedly diagnosed with hypertension because, as you know, most African Americans at a particular designated age range get hypertension. And I remember us playing, I think it was arena football and semi-pro professional football at the time. And I remember the doctor saying, you have hypertension. I'm thinking, like, I don't eat a lot of fried foods. I'm healthy. I'm playing football right now. This was in 1999. I was shocked. I was so shocked that I'm like, I'm not taking those pills. There's no way. Right. And I remember trying them for a little while. I think it was Lisinopril or something like that. And then the doctor said give them to me, and I started having side effects from those. And then 2004, I was feeling weird. I went into one of the defendant hospitals, and that's where all of our evidence shows that's when my first implantations began in 2004. After that particular visit at that hospital, if you read my medical records, I don't think I sent you, I complained about 2 large lumps at the base of my skull, having a tingly feeling all over my back. We now know why, because my back is implanted up along the spine with these biomedical devices. And even one doctor has said to me recently, I don't know why those wires are going up and down your back. But it's almost like this doctor wanted to say what he wanted to say, but he couldn't, like somebody was restricting him from saying what he wanted to say. And I could overhear him in this other office with another doctor saying maybe there's something rogue going on. So when I heard him say that, I said, then somebody's orchestrating this. Somebody's telling these doctors to say that the scans are normal. You've seen the scans, and you don't have to be a radiologist to say, what the heck is that in those scans? And that's how I felt at the very beginning when they were saying, your scans are normal. And I would say, well, what is that? And then, you got to talk to the radiologist, because you got to remember, if you go and get a scan today, there's only a report drafted. That report goes to your doctor. You never see the scans yourself. So I tell everybody, get a hard copy of the scan, get a CD-ROM of anything that you do. Because why? Doctors do make mistakes, and also there could be intentional things being done or hidden, like human research. I can tell you all of my scans, including the scans of my sons, are abnormal. And my experts have written declarations to not only the federal court, but also to the state court saying so. And whoever's behind this is trying to cover it all up. And as you know, human experimentation has been around a long time. So that's why I'm ruling out surveillance. Although these devices are capable of surveilling people, because I have what's called a transponder implanted in my right lumbar spine. I don't know if you saw the little deal, the lumbar spine with the little rabbit ears kind of coming out of the top of that I sent you.
Right.
But that's called a transponder. And I was wondering for months, how are these people able to follow me like they are? It's pinpoint accuracy. I remember taking the seats out of my car, looking for this, trying to find that smoking gun so I could file another suit, and I couldn't find it. And lo and behold, in 2012, we discovered that smoking gun sitting in my body along with my little ones. So you can't make this stuff up. This technology has been around a long time, but they're supposed to get your consent in order to put anything in your body, as you know.
So you think you got implanted in 2004 when you went in for hypertension, and that's when they...
Oh, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. My medical records after that 2004 hospitalization speak for themselves, because I was at the doctor almost every week or every 2 weeks for something. Green mucus coming out of the nostrils, out of the head. We now know why. Bloody nose, because my body was reacting to all the stuff that had been implanted in me. And that's exactly what my experts saying. When you read my medical records from 2004 all the way up to 2008, it's crystal clear what was taking place. And the only reason why some of the devices, which 6 devices were removed at UCLA on January 30th, my body rejected those devices, and they were protruding from my triceps. And so they were subcutaneous, just under the skin. And so those were able to be localized with an anesthetic and removed, and those were sent to a lab in Florida by one of my experts. So, and those devices all contain what's called waveguides. And if you look up the meaning of what a waveguide is, it's self-explanatory. It's high-tech stuff, and meaning that someone can connect with those waveguides and cause your blood pressure to fluctuate. Literally, it's torture, is what it is.
Wow. Unbelievable, man. I'm just sitting here just baffled listening to everything you're sharing. I mean, at one point you almost feel helpless. Like, when did you make that decision? Like, you know what? I'm not going to be no guinea pig here. I'm not going to be no, test experiment. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to resist.
Well, you know what's interesting? When I took the 2012 scans, when we in January 2012 visited the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies, and that's ICAACT.org in Sacramento, California. And once the doctors couldn't explain why my sons were doing what they were doing, and I kept feeling jolts to my chest, I realized that something was causing that. So we visit the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies, Mr. Beltran, up in Sacramento, and all of our bodies were scanned, radio frequency scanned from the outside, and that was to determine whether or not something foreign was on the inside. And I'll never forget that day, and that actually was recorded. As a matter of fact, it's on their website, the scanning of my two sons. I allowed him to do that a couple years ago. I'll never forget, as soon as he starts scanning my boys, this look on his face like, this is really evil stuff. And he said the words, when this is done, it's usually a whole entire families that are experimenting on, not just one person. And I remember sitting there saying, he asked me, can I scan you? I said, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm here for them, because literally I was. I was trying to figure out what was causing them to flail about in their sleep, profusely grind their teeth, little circular red marks on their bodies, the things that were happening that no one could explain. And I tell you, as soon as he put the scanner on me, bells and whistles went off from head to toe. And that's when I knew it basically what I was surmising came to reality with that scan. And what he said was this could only happen in a medical setting. And the first thing I thought was one of the defendants, I was there in 2004, same defendant, my sons were born 2006, 2007. So I immediately came back to Santa Barbara, started ordering medical records. And when I ordered my medical records, we discovered film that I knew nothing about that contained what's called implant leads, wires. One of my sons, it was a lateral chest X-ray, which showed millimeter device in the near the aorta area. So anyway, we start finding these bits and pieces of evidence of something going on. And that's when I made up my mind, because what they were trying to tell me, the report said normal X-ray, normal CT, when in fact you don't have to be a radiologist to see something looks abnormal on a scan. And so then that's when I got out of the area of Santa Barbara, ventured up to Newport Beach, California, found experts up there, and then this thing started rolling, taking a whole life of its own after that.
Hang on, Richard. We got to take another commercial break, man. I could not imagine the feeling you had when you realized that they were doing the same thing to your sons.
Yep.
Yep. I want to get your thoughts on that when we come back, right after this on Floor of Wisdom Radio. Shouts out to KTFL, KSZL, WSLA, and KBDB, all the radio stations carrying Flow of Wisdom right now. I definitely appreciate you guys listening in live on GCNlive.com. Welcome back to Flow of Wisdom. I'm your host, Sean Anthony. Richard Cain, my guest. Richard, this is a short segment here as we close out this hour and going into hour two, which we'll touch on some of the other things that we alluded to in the beginning. But I want to get your initial reaction when you took your two sons in the hospital. This doctor is performing scans on your sons, and he's finding all kind of anomalies in your kids' bodies, causing them. You said, what were the symptoms again? Gnashing their teeth. They were losing sleep, and what were some of the other symptoms?
So let me explain. The ISAAC.org is a private entity which basically performs scans on individuals who may feel like something's inside of their bodies and that type of thing. So they're called radio frequency scans. If you look them up, they're really well known. They've got a lot of top experts around the world who are affiliated with them, and it's a great organization. And Mr. Beltran is not a doctor. He's actually a former firefighter, and he got into the business to help people as he was a victim of the same thing sometime in his past. So basically what the scan does, it scans the outside of your body to determine whether or not there are signals sending and receiving from the body. Wow. And in the case of my two sons who he scanned first, he got a positive reaction for scans sending and receiving. Then when he did me from head to toe, sending and receiving signals. So then that's when I returned and ordered all of our medical records and requested of our doctors for scans and x-rays of our bodies to determine whether, in fact, what the readings that he was giving us, in fact, did x-rays reveal something in those areas.
Did you get any resistance when you went to those doctors to get those?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. But you know what? I had looked at other stories of individuals that have been through this, and I think that's why I've been so successful, because the way I went about the whole thing allowed me to get as far as I've gotten. Mm-hmm. So what I won't get into it, but I was able to get what I needed, which was the scans. And although they wrote down normal x-ray, and you've seen those x-rays, there's nothing normal about their x-rays or my scans. I knew right then and there something was being covered up. And the fact that I was able to discover x-rays in my records, you got to remember, I was born in Chicago, south side of Chicago. I've only been in the hospital twice since birth. And that was in 2004 and 2008. Both of those medical facilities, we discovered x-rays. And those x-rays confirmed implanted leads, wires, and or devices. So you might ask the question, well, why would they leave the x-rays? That was the question that I was asking for many months, if not a couple of years, until I found out from a doctor that anytime you implant anything in the body, whether it's a pacemaker or anything like that, generally whoever did the implantation wants to see the finished product. So what they'll do is they'll take an x-ray. And mind you, I was not supposed to return. I'm a healthy guy, even now, outside of what's inside of me that's implanted without my consent. I've never had a history of needing to go to the doctor or anything like that, so I was not supposed to return to those facilities for any reason at all other than finding out what I found out in 2012 and then requesting my medical records. So once I requested medical records and then ordered scans in 2012 of myself and my two sons, those scans, although they wrote normal on their radiology reports, the scans speak for themselves, and my experts have all confirmed that those scans are in fact abnormal. And now that we know what the devices are, we didn't back then, but we now know it's nanotechnology and other foreign biomedical devices which are sitting in our scans, which someone is trying to hide. And the interesting thing about it, do I think it's just us? Absolutely not. Because here's one of the things I wrote in my federal complaint, once I traced this back to who I believe is involved. My son supposedly had asthma. If these devices are implanted in a particular area, like, for example, in my body, that was the rationale for my hypertension. If you plant it near the lung and you're triggering these radio frequency devices, that's what they are. They all contain waveguides, and you trigger it near the lung, guess what's going to happen?
I don't know.
You're going to have some breathing problems, right?
Oh, yeah, you're going to have some kind of complications, for sure.
If you go to the doctor, first thing they're going to say is what? You probably got asthma.
Yeah, you got asthma. So, hang on, Richard. We're wrapping up this hour. Let's dive into this deeper the second hour. Also, I want you to expand on who you found, who's behind all of this. Talk about more of your federal complaints and also other individuals that were targeted. We'll get into that. Myron Mays, Aaron Alexis, all of these gentlemen were targeted individuals as well. We'll talk about that in the second hour. Stick around. 6 minutes past the top of the hour. I'm Sean Anthony. This is Flow of Wisdom. That's right, get motivated. Welcome to Hour 2 of Flow of Wisdom Radio. This is June 7, 2015. I'm your host, Sean Anthony. We're live on the Genesis Communications Network. And, of course, we do the show live every Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, thank you to all of my affiliates on the West Coast and those that are down south. I have affiliates in Arizona, California, Louisiana, Washington State, and as well as One-on-One to Fam here in Richmond, Virginia, and, of course, GCNlive.com. My guest, Richard Cain, targeted individual, has documents pictures, and all types of facts backing up everything that he has mentioned thus far on the show, and then some. You shared in the first hour, Richard, that you have video. Man, I don't know when you plan on releasing that video documentation, but man, feel free to let me know. Keep me posted on that so I can
Definitely.
keep my viewers up to speed with that. Because listen, here's the thing. I brought Richard on today because when I first started interviewing targeted individuals, more targeted individuals started reaching out to me. And, it's difficult because anyone can say, hey, I'm being targeted. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, and that's not to dismiss anybody's claims, but when you provide the documentation, facts, and things that can back up, it just adds more validity. And Richard, I just want to salute you for the diligence that you've been doing thus far in documenting everything. And not everybody has a strong mind to be able to fight through this type of targeting, this type of attack.
I'm going to tell you why I was so adamant. If you talk to anyone that's ever known me, the last thing anyone has ever thought of Richard Cain is being crazy, ever. And when I realized the very beginning, they were trying to make me appear as though I was crazy. I'm like, why would a doctor put normal when you can see that 2012 CT scan? There's a metallic object implanted in my chest. You can see it. I'm not a doctor, but everybody else that has eyes can see that can't possibly be normal. You can go to medmd.com, put the same age range, black male, 6 foot, whatever, chest x-ray, and you'll get a normal from an abnormal. And once I realized this was about a cover-up, this was about trying to make me look like I was crazy, I knew at that point it was about gathering the evidence to support everything from day. I have a journal from 2010 when the surveillance first started. Every day, every evening, I would write down in my journal everything that happened in that 8-hour period because I knew someday that all would come back to support everything, pictures, photographs, you name it, because I realized the objective was to do this covertly. And I think if I wouldn't have discovered the devices that are implanted in my chest, which are depicted in that X-ray, I probably wouldn't be on the phone today because it appears that those devices and the way they feel were designed to trigger what appeared to be a heart attack, a natural heart attack.
Well, that leads into a question that I received on Twitter from Mr. Do 2012. He's listening online. He says, are the transponders strictly for tracking, or have you discovered a biochemical reactionary purpose as well?
Right. I haven't discovered, I've heard of other individuals that have, but I haven't discovered any type of chemical reactions. I can tell you what, I've discovered a lot of pain because when they're triggered, there's intense pain on the spine and in that particular region. As a matter of fact, that region, my primary care physician, who is also an expert witness in one of the cases, there's a surgical scar there.
When you say triggered, what do you mean by when this item is triggered?
It's like a stimulation. It's like a pulsating stimulus, and it causes pain. If you look at the, I want to say, lumbar spine, I sent you the image in that CT scan of my right lumbar spine, and we've identified it finally as what's called a microstimulator and or transponder, which means you can be tracked, from a plane with that device in your right lump. You're like a blip on the screen. It could be 1,000 people in a crowd, but you'll be pointed out because of that transponder that's there.
I'm looking at the image now, and you also mentioned
like it's got little antennas on it. That's the transponder in the casing.
Yeah.
There's a surgical scar to prove that somebody put it there. And, interesting enough, like I said, this is high-tech stuff.
Let me just jump in because you got the surgical scars. You got the. I'm looking at the scan right now. For those that are listening, you guys can go to flowofwisdom.com, check it out for yourself. Like, did they put you under? Were they doing this when you were asleep?
They had to put me out, and all my experts. I mean, the amount of stuff that's in my body. Like I said, I've only been in the hospital twice, 2004 and 2008. On both occasions, they asked me to stay in order to monitor my blood pressure, which was allegedly high. when I arrived. You know, if someone diagnosed you with something and you feel something, you go in and say, hey, can I get my blood pressure checked? Lady checks my blood pressure. Wow, it's really, really high. So go over into this little room, and I was at one for 6 hours at one location until the wee hours in the morning when I remember waking up, and they said, okay, your blood pressure's fine, go home. One other location, they had me stay overnight. And I remember, like it happened yesterday, room 1101, they rolled me in the room, and I was in there all by myself all night. And my records say patient awakes complaining of a headache. So if I'm there from 11 at night until 11 in the morning, it all makes sense now. Things were being done while I was there, and that explains also why this thing is dragged out for 5 years. There's a lot to cover up, because what's been done is heinous. It's unlawful. It's unconstitutional. And that's one of the reasons why I've fought so hard, because not only are you trying to make it appear as though someone's crazy, but you violated my body and thinking that I'm just going to roll over and you're going to get away with it.
So
that keeps my fire burning.
Help me out here, Richard. One, what are they covering up? Was it? And then tie the two in from them surveilling you at the beginning. Why were they surveilling you? Because you had something in you that they wanted to cover up, or
here's what I can surmise, because I'll probably never know the truth, as some have said. Either I was the victim of some type of surveillance through association or something, and then in 2004 they started implanting all of this stuff, and then it was interesting. Just before graduating from law school for my JD, that's when the intensity picked up. It's almost like we can't let him graduate. We got to do this now, because it just doesn't make any sense.
What were you working on during? I'm sorry, go ahead.
My point is, either this was experimentation or a wrongful profile, and maybe they're prematurely implanting these what we now know are tracking devices, listening device. Remote neural monitoring means they can hear and see and track your every movement. So this stuff was being interjected into the body for that purpose, and they realized they made a mistake. They know it's unconstitutional, whoever they is. I think we have a good idea. And they made a mistake, and they probably threw me under the Patriot Act bus or the national security bus to cover it all up. Instead of saying, oops, we made a mistake, we've been following this guy for years.
Now, when you say
we thought,
when you say they put you under the Patriot Act and national security, what are they trying to say, that you're a threat?
Well, here's the thing. I've written every single federal agency there is. I've written even the new Attorney General recently. I think I sent you that document I wrote Eric Holder before, asking for an investigation, asking for, okay, what is this about? Can you imagine not being able to be afforded due process? This is going on for 5 years. You have no idea what they're looking for, night and day, 24/7, just like Mr. May talked about. You remember Mr. May? Mm-hmm. Same exact modus operandi. And then it finally dawned on me that it's never going to end, because they have things to hide, which is these devices are tied into the spine, the central nervous system, and they're throughout your blood system in your arms and that type of stuff. So it's going to do what? Increase your blood rate, blood pressure. At some point, you're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated because you're writing all these agencies. No one's responding until you find out they're blocking your emails to these agencies and blocking your mail. There's so much. It's incredible. So you could see why certain individuals, I don't want to say the names, but thought, at least in their minds, that they had no other recourse but to do something crazy, which that kind of stuff never even crossed my mind, because I know how to file a lawsuit in 10 seconds. So there's plenty more defendants out there, and I'll exhaust every defendant possible until someone from the Justice Department tells me what this is about. If this is about surveillance and they made a mistake, then, like one of the presidents said, own up to your mistake. You know what I mean? Somebody's made a mistake. Either this was intentionally human experimentation, or these are tracking devices that are being prematurely implanted into people for surveillance purposes, and they made a mistake, and they rung the bell, and they couldn't unring it. Now let's just do this guy in. Something's going on. That's my whole point. Why, who, what, when, where, and why is still the question. But
were you working on a case or something, like prior to you graduating from school? Were you researching something confidential?
Not at all. I can tell you what I was doing in 2004 when all this stuff was, that we have proof and evidence and facts that that's when the implants began. I was working in a residential care home for developmentally disabled adults. So it ain't too many cases that have to deal with the government or intelligence or anything like that. I work with people from all various walks of life. At one point, I was thinking, well, maybe in law school, we had people from different countries, but once the facts started unfolding and we start figuring more and more things out that this was all started in 2004, I started thinking back, what was I doing in 2004 that could have caused this? And then once you realize your whole body's loaded full of devices, there's no other plausible explanation other than human research or hate crimes. There's some group going around or entity or rogue elements of the government that are implanting this stuff in people. And I like to use the word and giggles, if I can say that word on the radio.
You can't, and
it's a game.
Let me jump in as we close out on this segment. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but for people that think that this is hard to think this is hard to fathom, this can't be possible. Well, you got to look at history.
It always repeats
Tuskegee experiment. They've experimented on those black men and Tuskegee and left them untreated with those venereal diseases. But anyway, we got to take a quick break. I'm going to take your phone calls right after this on Floor of Wisdom Radio. Welcome back to Floor of Wisdom Radio. I am your host, Sean Anthony, live on the Genesis Communications Network every Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Richard Cain, my guest, says he was implanted with nanotechnology and has the documents, images, and proof of being a targeted individual. You can check out his facts, his proof. It's all posted on floorofwisdom.com. See the photos for yourself. See the PDF files for yourself. See the scans that we're talking about, the actual the items that is in his body. It's all there and it's all documented. Let's go to the phone lines. We have Lyle who wants to make a statement about what you're talking about. Lyle is calling from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Lyle, welcome back to Floor of Wisdom. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great, man.
What he says kind of reminds me of something that happened when I was in the military back in the 90s. They was getting ready to come out with this program where they was going to replace our dog tags with a permanent fluorescent strip under our hands. So, like, if we got blown up, they could take a fluorescent light and scan the battlefield and be able to find the body part. Now, your body, well, I had told my squad leader, I said, there's no way they're going to put any kind of mark on my hand, because I just started thinking about the mark of the beast, which might have not been that, but I know it's enough uproar that the Army eventually canceled the program and they just let us keep our dog tags. So I believe, though, in the upper units like Special Forces and Rangers, I think it's mandatory for them to get the RFID chip in case they are captured, because they have, so many clearances and stuff. I do believe that. And when you look at some of the movies, like the Bourne movies, you always see where they have different kinds of implants in the operatives, the soldiers and stuff. So I do believe that they probably are taking some people without knowledge and testing these different devices without their consent. So I do believe that it's possible what the gentleman said, that they maybe just chose him and his children and did it without their consent.
Mm-hmm. Richard, you want to respond to what Lyle mentioned?
I totally agree with what he said. Well, there's no other plausible explanation for it other than human experimentation. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the cast, if you want to follow me, you could put, like he said, one little device in the hand and follow me all over America. That's the technology we have today. To have implants at the base of my skull, throughout my chest, every single limb in my body is inexplicable other than experimentation. And now, and how the Patriot Act ties into it in national security, in order to cover it all up, all they have to do is claim that I'm somebody that I'm not, or I'm associated with somebody that I'm not, and basically throw you under the Patriot Act bus and kill you and ruin your life and everything else just to cover up something that they know is unconstitutional and is not supposed to be taking place.
Wow. Lyle, any other statements?
Yeah, like I said, I heard you talk about the Tuskegee experiment, and that and many other experiments that they have done prove that this is not science fiction. This is something that they do on a regular basis for the basis of national security. We got to make sure that we, like this, now they had the big data breach of the government with 4 million veterans, government personnel records. So when they implement this thing, it's going to make sense. And most people ain't going to look at it as being nefarious. They're going to say, we're trying to protect your identity. The best way to do it is put it on your body. So if they experiment on this gentleman and his son, they're saying it's just to help better everything for our civilization and keep us from having these big ID thefts of people's personal records. So,
right.
I totally agree with what he said.
Yeah,
right, it's for the better good. The word is it's for the better good.
Yeah.
Although we're destroying his life and what's happening to the kids, they're in them, it's for the better good in the long run, which is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, they create the problem and already have a solution, and they base it off of fear. They tap into people's emotions to get you.
Well, if you can go back for a quick second to this whole surveillance thing I talked about, which is still happening. Like I said, I got out of church today at 10:30. Same thing. And especially when I'm about to go on a radio show or I'm about to submit a new piece of evidence to the court, they ratchet it up. They know I'm going to file an opposition to a motion or something like that because why? I'm speaking the truth. I'm speaking the facts, and they're trying to hide the truth and the facts.
Well, we're exposing it all today. Richard, sorry, we got to take another quick commercial break. Lyle, thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate you listening. We'll be back with more Richard Cain on Flow of Wisdom Radio. My website is flowofwisdom.com. Log on there. You can check out the links, the documents, the photos that we've been referring to the past hour and a half on my show. My guest, Richard Cain, is sharing his testimony of being a targeted individual, and him and his sons were implanted with nanotechnology. Phone lines are open as well. 1-877-300-7645. Leroy in Atlanta has a question for my guest, Richard. Leroy, welcome to Flow of Wisdom. How are you, my man?
Hanging in there. What's up, S.A.?
Oh, what's going on, brother? What's your question for Richard?
I had a question and a couple of statements. First, I wanted to give shouts out to the president for being the first human to run the Triple Crown.
Okay.
You heard the name of the horse, right? Well, my bad.
Yeah, American Pharaoh, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Come on, Leroy.
I mean, I call it, like I said, we can't ignore these spiritual signatures that the Lord has given us.
Right. What's your question for Richard?
Just real quick, I understand, that this is really bothering you. Why would you reach out to the government knowing that those are the ones ultimately behind all of this?
Well, what's interesting? When this first started, quite honestly, I thought, I've heard of experimentation. I knew it had to be nothing but experimentation and that I didn't give any consent to do it. And I originally thought this was just, say, a hospital and a group of doctors. And then as the years and months have gone by, my experts have been able to track the frequencies back to, like, the U.S. Navy, subsonar, that type of thing. Then you begin to realize that those surveillance planes and those the surveillance, you tie it all together and you realize it's much bigger than just a hospital. This is research grants that have been provided to the hospitals and things like that. Then you begin to slowly piece together and realize, wow, I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, because, like I said, I've written every federal agency. I've asked for an investigation, got nothing. I've asked to take a lie detector in case I was suspected of being whomever. But now I know I'm not suspected of anything. I'm suspected of telling the truth, and they're trying to keep it hush-hush, and while at the same time violating every constitutional right that I may have left.
All right, one more comment. All right, so you're a Christian, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so do you know what the Lord tells us, that we're made in His image, 3 parts?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so what is the government? 3 parts, right?
Right.
The government here. So we know they aren't about God, so what does that make the government?
Yeah, I got you. I ain't going there right now. No, I understand.
All right, cool. Just wanted to share that with everybody.
I got you. Yep.
Let's keep praying. Our weapons are spiritual, not carnal, mighty, pulling down the strongholds. So it's all good. We got this. No, we got this.
There you go.
Right.
Leroy,
and my goal mainly is to make this story known because I am almost certain that I am not the only one, and I just happen to figure it all out. You know, I used to be a personal trainer, so when my body started doing things that didn't make sense, even at a resting, heart rate and at a sedentary position, thighs bouncing, stimulating, and when I went to the radiologist, and every inch of my body's been CT scanned, and everywhere I told the radiologist to look for something foreign millimeter in size, nanotechnology has surfaced. So it was because of my intuition to figure it all out, and there are a lot of people thinking, I've got this medical condition, this is what the doctor says, and what I've learned throughout this whole thing, don't believe everything the doctor said. You get that radiology report, you ask for the film, you ask for the CD-ROM, and ask questions. Because if I had just listened to, your scans are normal, I'd probably be 6 feet under by now.
Wow. Leroy, thanks for the call, man. I got to get to these others. That's interesting, and I want to get to this other call, too. But you were mentioning some of your symptoms, body twitching, headaches, heart rate is just racing when you're just basically chilling,
Exactly.
And I'm pretty in tune with my body, more so than others. I work out. I eat fairly healthy for the most part, and I can detect, when my body's out of whack. I know when I need to cut back some of the carbs, some cookies and milk, and increase a little cardio and things like that. So, for somebody else that's listening right now that may not believe that they are being targeted, what are some other, real quick, if you can, Richard, some bullet points, some things that they should take a little bit more serious, as far as symptoms are concerned?
Well, what's interesting? This is real deep. It's not just symptoms. You ever heard like an individual say, man, I just got a stroke of bad luck. Like every time, everything they do, just they can't seem to get a break. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Right. This whole it's probably several parts to it. Okay. It's being implanted with devices. It's being stalked, what they call gang stalking. It's also being black. I call it white-balled instead of blackballed. In your community, you can't get a job, that type of thing. It's a big machine. It's not just about it's much more deeper than that. And individuals that don't have a clue. See, I don't really like the term targeted individual. I like the term more victims of non-consensual experimentation, because that's why you are a target. Because they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, and then in turn they're targeting you, alleging that you're somebody that you're not, in order to get away with it and to cover it all up. So one of the things is, if you start seeing things happening, you go to a job, you can't get a job, you try to get a bank account, you can't get a bank. It's a whole bunch of flags, which we can talk about in part two. And I learned it from firsthand experience. I learned it from listening to other stories. The modus operandi is the same. In a lot of cases that you see on YouTube and individuals, I get calls from all over the U.S. I get CD-ROM sent to me in the mail. Can you look at this? I've got people asking me to do a variety of things because of how far I've gotten thus far. So to answer that question is really tough, because physical symptoms, like you said, if you were in tune with your body like I was, only in the hospital twice, 2004, 2008, and remember, I was only at the hospital to have my blood pressure observed. No surgeries, no nothing. But one of my experts, I've had more than 10 surgical scars on my body that were found under a particular light, because we knew the stuff was in me once we did the CT scans, but then we had to find out what routes were taken to get there, and that's when the surgical scars all surfaced, and wherever there's a surgical scar, there's an implanted device.
Yeah, it's crazy, because you got to be careful. I have a brother of mine in South Carolina. He went in the hospital for a simple thumb surgery, and was released in a wheelchair.
Yep. Well, let me tell you something about that. Some people are surmising, and I know there's proof to support a lot of it. people are going in for back surgeries and say there's some new experimental device on the market. Hey, when you're out in that room, I'm going to tell you, when I had my surgery in January to remove 6 of the devices, there were 2 in my triceps, and they're all in the muscles. 2 in each tricep of each arm, the bicep, and the abdomen. I was in there with myself, and I just put my faith in God and the doctor that was removing them, because my trust level was 0. Because knowing that doctors were covering up this stuff and either being told by rogue government agents, or they were involved because of the research grants, not having any trust, they told me I was the first person ever to not be taken IV. I did local, and I wouldn't take any pills and any. So I was thinking, whoever put this stuff in me probably would like me to be gone tomorrow, because there's some cover up. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty deep, and 2 hours won't cover it. But just to put it out there, if you know your body, if it smells, it stinks, you know something's wrong. And I knew that what I observed in my kids, the profuse grinding of their teeth, flailing about in their sleep, almost they would be in a dead sleep and arms moving like little robots, like something was causing them to jerk about. And now that we know these devices, they're called micro-electromechanical systems, MIMS, and they're radio frequency controlled, and they're made by one of the manufacturers, the Alfred Mann Foundation, and other manufacturers of these devices. They're not made to be put in people's bodies. So that's why I said, these are experimentation and hate crimes all rolled up into one. Because if you're sticking this in somebody's body, they don't know what's in them, and you're experimenting on them, you're basically playing with their lives.
Yeah. Let's take another phone call. We have Mike in Michigan has a question for my guest, Richard Cain. Mike, welcome to Floor of Wisdom. How are you?
Thank you. Richard, I'd like to ask you, have you heard of anything about like a grape-sized lump deep in the back of a person's neck? And if so, do you suggest it should be removed?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question, because I have 2 of those at the base of my skull, right and left. And when we did the CT scan in 2013, if you read the doctor's radiology report, we already knew it was remote neuromonitoring, because what we did is we cut all the hair off my head, and you can see the surgical scars at the base of my skull and the little bore holes at the top of the head. So we already knew somebody went in and did something, because my medical records after that 2004 visit, I was coughing up green phlegm, my nose was bleeding, so my body's reacting to all the stuff that was put in me. So the 2 lumps that I have, if you look at the CT scan, actually you have the CT scan, Sean. Yeah. If you look at the base of the skull, you'll see it speaks for itself. So I refuse to, and matter of fact, the radiologist says possibly lipoma. That's what they tried to call everything that I pulled out to this day, possibly lipoma. So either they're negligent in identifying what's there, or they're complicit, or they're being told to say that it's lipoma. Because if you look at the base of my skull in the CT scan, which I believe Sean has, there's no way lipoma looks like that, and we've identified the devices as electronic devices associated with remote neural monitoring. Now, remember, again, this type of technology, you just can't go downtown and buy it.
Man.
And it's all experimental technology.
Mike, did that help you out a little bit?
Well, I'd like to know if you suggest if it should be surgically removed.
Well, I can tell you I didn't ask for it. I'm not letting them go back in and remove it. I can tell you that much. So I can't give you any, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I can just talk about my circumstance. And what I now know is not lipoma. The lumps, the grape-sized lumps at the base of my right and left skull are not lipomas. They don't grow like that. And my CT scan reveals exactly what it is, and I'm taking the appropriate litigation action to deal with it.
Mike, are you suggesting you have these lumps on the back of your neck right now? Mike. Okay, he hung up.
Mike is gone.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Richard, I thought 2 hours would be pretty much, a lot of time, but
no, this is pretty deep stuff. That's the reason why this has gone on for 5 years, and I'm certain I'm not the only one that this has happened to.
Yeah,
but, it's heinous, it's horrible, and people should just be aware.
And that's what I want
to say really quick.
Wait a minute, we got to take a quick commercial break. I want to get your closing remarks when we come back. Richard Cain, we'll be right back on Floor of Wisdom Radio, guys. Welcome back to Flow of Wisdom Radio. I am your host, Sean Anthony, live here on the Genesis Communications Network every Sunday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to tune in live and get involved with the show. My website is flowofwisdom.com. I want to thank my guest, Richard Cain, for joining me today and sharing his testimony, his story of being what he doesn't like to say as a targeted individual. Him and his sons were implanted with nanotechnology. And Richard has the documents, the pictures, and all of the forms to back his claims, all of the facts. Richard, I'm wrapping up this show. It's been great having you on, but I want to give you a few moments to get your closing remarks and any information that you want my listeners out there to know.
Right. Well, I think one of the things, like one of the gentlemen said earlier, is not far-fetched to believe that experimentation is still happening. If you think for a minute that surveillance I talk about is still happening today, if you have any connections or any of your listeners have connections in California, just talk to the CHP, local law enforcement, anywhere I've traveled, and you'll find it to be true. So it's not made up or imagined. It's real. And so the question I have is, if I am what they're looking for, why not show up at my doorstep and say, we're suspected you? Can you imagine for 5 years being subjected to the same thing 24/7 for almost 5 years now, and no one's yet knocked on my door and said, well, we suspect you of doing anything, but then you find all this stuff in your body, so then it leads you to believe that there's a cover-up afoot because of what's been done. So, my expert witness declarations that were submitted to the federal court and also the state court speak for themselves. So this is nothing that's imagined or made up by me. This is facts. And the scans are supported by facts, and which can't be disputed.
Have
And
they tried to put...
even in some of the ongoing litigation, some of the defendants say, well, we didn't do it. Res ipsa loquitur, the thing it is. You mean it's there, we didn't do it. And I can tell you, like I said at the beginning of the interview, is that some of the doctors look at me like, man, we wish we could do something, but it's almost like they've been given what they call an NSL, a national security letter, saying you can't speak, you can't talk. And so somebody's behind it. And my story mirrors the story of many other.
Who do you think Who do you think's behind this?
Well, all I can say, there's no doubt federal agencies involved. Whether it's military components, contractors, whoever, there's individuals whose pay grade is a lot higher than the doctor's pay grade. And I'll tell you what one attorney told me from Los Angeles. He says, do you really think the majority of these doctors would risk their careers and lives just for experimentation? And his words were, somebody is telling them to do this or to not do something. And so, as the days go by, I just continue to gather the evidence and hope that eventually I'll find out who's responsible, which federal agency, and then move from there. But to have this going on for 5 years is I would think, somewhat ridiculous. If I'm suspected of something, come knock on my door. Let's have a conversation about it. But we all know that I'm not suspected of anything. This is
Richard,
just, yes.
I just commend you, number one. I pray for your safety, your protection for you and your children, and I come in agreement with you that no weapon formed against you or your children or your family, it will not prosper. And I pray that the enemy is exposed fully in this whole situation. And I pray that the Heavenly Father continues to use you to bring light on this darkness, and hopefully that it can help others that are out there experiencing the same things. They've been testing on us for many years, and like I alluded to about the Tuskegee experiment, which we didn't get a chance to really dive into that. But Richard, I'll have you back on, man. We'll stay in communication. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate your time.
And I'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Yes, no doubt. Richard Cain, ladies and gentlemen, please go to flowofwisdom.com, and it's the top post on Flow of Wisdom right now, so it'll be easy to find. Just look for his name, Richard Cain, and go through the information. Share it. He gave me full permission to post it and for it to be shared with whomever. So we got to get this word out, because there's others like Richard Cain that's going through the same thing. Be back next week, guys. Same time, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Genesis Communications Network. Live life, get wisdom, and let it flow. Peace.